events and issues shaping our community. This is Comcast Newsmakers.
You've heard of the No Child Left Behind Act, but did you know that part of the legislation provides free tutoring for your child at school? It does, and many parents in South Florida are not taking advantage of it. Here to tell us how these programs can help improve your child's performance is Manuel Ferrer, he's the president of the FELC Tutors, offered to schools in the Sunshine State. And thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Spiro.
This is something that not many people have taken advantage of, and they just don't know about it, right?
Absolutely. And just like you said earlier, under the No Child Left Behind Act, what the federal government has said is that any school, Title I school, in other words, schools that are of low income, if they're not meeting what's called adequate yearly progress, which are the benchmarks that a school needs to meet, then the students that attend those schools are eligible to receive free tutoring services from programs like ours.
That doesn't necessarily mean an A, B, or C grade. You could have an A school that's
correct.
Not meeting those standards, right?
Absolutely right. The school grade has really nothing to do with the benchmarks. The benchmarks, what Congress said when the No Child Left Behind Act was passed, is that by the year 2014, every student attending a public school has to be proficient in reading and math. So the school grade has really nothing to do with the benchmarks that the state has to acquire by the end of 2014.
When you see these kids coming in for tutoring, is it because they're not meeting the standards of the FCAT, or they just are not meeting the standards of the class?
Well, they're correlated. One is really aligned with the other, but for the most part, what we do is we diagnose the students based on the benchmarks that are assessed on the FCAT. And what we do is we try to work with the school districts and the actual school to help them meet those benchmarks.
Is this a turnaround point for some of these students?
It really is. I mean, you look at schools like Liberty City Elementary School and Holmes Elementary, two of the most persistently failing schools in the state. And we went in there about a year ago, started working with their teachers and their school principal. And as you heard probably a few months ago, Holmes Elementary School went from a F to a C, and Liberty City from an F to an A. So we're very proud of the work that we've been doing in collaboration with the school district.
Now, how did this come about? You're talking about this was part of the No Child Left Behind Act, right?
That's correct.
And this means that some of the different subgroups in the schools might not be coming up to standards.
Absolutely right. I think what the No Child Left Behind Act has done, whether you stand on one side of the fence or the other, whether you like it or not, the one thing that it has done, it's cast a spotlight on those students that have been failing for years without any additional assistance. So there may be subgroups like your English language learners, your special needs students that have really gone forgotten for the most part. So what the No Child Left Behind Act said is that every subgroup needs to have an equal chance of succeeding as every other student.
Do you think this is part of an effort of really making the education system down here in South Florida better and better and have a higher grade than before?
Sure. I think it's a national effort, and it truly has. When you look at how students are performing academically today compared to just 10 years ago, again, we're not at the level we want to be, but we're much better than we were even a decade ago.
I know the FCAT has got a lot of detractors.
Sure.
But for the first time, there's some accountability
Absolutely.
here. And it might be intrusive in some of the teachers' work days and years, but it is kind of like giving us a higher benchmark to reach for.
Well, Spiro, I was a teacher, and I taught for 6 years, and I was school administrator for 5. And in my 6 years, I was twice named Teacher of the Year. It wasn't to say that I was a great teacher, but what I did is I looked at the FCAT benchmarks, and I used that as a roadmap. And I figured if I can teach certain benchmarks in my classroom, my students would perform well on the FCAT.
Right.
So it's not that I was teaching to the test. I was teaching using the benchmarks that were going to be assessed on the test.
Okay.
So the FCAT, and we know it's got detractors,
right.
It's really been a great roadmap for where we should take our students academically.
All right, well, thank you so much. Great work you're doing out there,
Thank
and I
you,
know
Spiro.
a lot of kids are benefiting from it. This hour's Newsmakers showed us what parents can do to improve their child's performance at school. Get ready for baseball season. Check out everything Marlins on Comcast On Demand. Head to Get Local and select Marlins TV. I'm Spiro Kenton. Thank you for joining us.